it up.
No, don't be worried about it. Don't be worried about it.
So what time is it for you?
It is 8 o'clock in the evening.
Okay. For us, it's 3 p.m. It's crazy. So why don't you just, there are some people coming on, why don't you just introduce yourself and then kind of tell people where you're from, where your awesome accent is from. And you can just kind of start with your story.
Okay, well, my name's Selena and I'm from Northern Ireland. And I have a beautiful boy called Ollie who's 1.5.
Oh. He's so cute.
He's a handful. He is a handful.
That seems to be the common denominator with BWS babies.
Oh yes, they're strong, but they are a handful.
So when was he diagnosed?
Ollie wasn't really diagnosed until 6 months old.
Okay.
My pregnancy was fairly normal up until around 30 weeks, and a scan had showed quite a lot of amniotic fluid. And also Ollie at 30 weeks was sort of estimating around £6.11 in weight, so he was very large at 30 weeks. So again, there were suspicions over me having diabetes, gestational diabetes, so I'd actually tested positive for gestational diabetes. So really a lot of sort of the early problems with Ollie was sort of, it was in and around because I had gestational diabetes in pregnancy. The scans did show when the scan me at 30 weeks that he had enlarged kidneys.
Okay.
They also thought he had cysts on the kidneys. So at 30 weeks, it was quite scary. They thought that he had polycystic kidney disease. So there was a lot of worry at that stage whether Ollie would be born with his kidneys functioning or whether he would need a transplant for his kidneys. So that kind of overshadowed a lot of sort of the diagnosis for Beckwith-Wiedemann syndrome. So again, when Ollie was born, his kidneys were functioning perfectly. We thank God for that. And that kind of brushed under the carpet the whole idea of polycystic kidney disease. Now, they did test him for it and it came back negative, thankfully. But again, there was still a question mark over, well, what is this? So Ollie's consultant is fantastic, and sort of at around sort of 4 months old, she had felt that this is Beckwith-Wiedemann syndrome. Certainly it was mentioned sort of a day after Ollie was born. The doctor had said there was a possibility it could be Beckwith-Wiedemann syndrome, which we'd never heard of it before and were quite unsure. But again, because they were throwing all sorts of conditions at us, we didn't really pay much attention at the time.
Right.
We did have the head of genetics come down to meet Ollie in the hospital, because Ollie was in hospital for 6 weeks after he was born, because he struggled with his breathing. So the head of genetics came down and looked at Ollie and actually said, no, he's not showing enough of the symptoms for me to put Ollie forward for testing for Beckwith-Wiedemann syndrome. So him being the head of genetics, we kind of thought, well, it mustn't be Beckwith-Wiedemann syndrome then. But again, as time went on, when Ollie was about 4 or 5 months, his consultant had said, look, I don't want Ollie to miss any of the screening, because there is a risk of tumours. It's best just to get him tested, just to be on the safe side. So she was fantastic and really pushed for him to get the test done. So within 12 weeks, we got that back and it tested positive. So there we had our answer, to his diagnosis.
Right. So that's really great that they were that quick over there, because some people I've talked to, they're not that quick.
Is that right?
Yeah, a lot of people I've talked to, they get brushed under the rug a lot, or unless their child is born with a lot of the signs that are obvious. But and then some people, I talked to somebody that their son was diagnosed, but it said that their risk wasn't the highest risk case, so they weren't going to give them the proper screenings. And I was like,
Scary.
It's really scary. So
It really is.
awesome, because that's been my whole reason for starting this, is so that people, like, the recognition is quick. So,
Oh, definitely. I mean, Ollie didn't show all the symptoms of it. You know, Ollie was born with an enlarged tongue. Again, he was massive in size. We had to deliver him at 34 weeks, and he was £8.9 when he was born.
8 pounds?
£8.9.
Oh my gosh.
At 34 weeks, so he was 6 weeks early, so he was the biggest baby in the neonatal unit.
Yeah, Owen was born at 12 pounds, but he was...
Oh my goodness.
He was to term. He was cozy in there. He had no
intention of coming out.
No. So he was born by C-section, and he was in the NICU, and he looked ridiculous. He was just so big.
I know they need to build special incubators for Beckwith babies, because they're top to tail.
I know.
So no,
So does he does. Oh, I'm losing you a little bit.
So he was only showing the enlarged tongue, the enlarged kidneys, and being big in size. So he didn't have any of the pits or anything like that, you know, behind the ears or anything like that. He didn't have low blood sugar or anything like that either, which again, with me having diabetes in pregnancy, the thought that his sugar levels would be elevated and things. So again, because he didn't show all the signs, he wasn't initially put forward to for testing straight away. But as our consultant's fantastic, and she has said to us that she believes there's a lot more children out there with Beckwith-Weeman syndrome, and they're being missed, because again, there's a list of symptoms, and if you don't tick every box, then you're kind of brushed under the carpet, which is quite scary, considering that there is the risk there of tumours growing, and you need to make sure you get early screening done, you know.
I know, it's really scary because like right now Owen's fine so far. He's 15 months, but you know, the thought of him not being diagnosed and missing all of the screenings in that time frame is scary. I just visited someone that's in a hospital with their baby, that the hospital that specializes, the one that's real close to me, that specializes in Beckwith, and her baby is there, and they found a tumor. She's 4 months old, and they found a tumor on her liver. So they took it out, and now they're waiting to get the results back. And it's just scary, because you're like, okay, well, what if, like, she never was diagnosed? I mean, and it does, yeah, it would be missed. It's so scary. And I mean, I think people don't feel like it should be talked about until it becomes a problem. But with our babies, once it becomes a problem, it, like, grows so quickly.
Yeah.
That is so scary.
It is a scary place to be. I mean, we actually have an Ollie's next ultrasound on Monday, and I always feel, you know, coming up to the couple of days beforehand, your mind, it starts playing on your mind a lot more. But again, I just look at Ollie, and I just thank God every day for him, and I just know that Ollie is a strong boy, and no matter what life throws at him, I just trust God that it will be okay. It'll all be okay. You know, you have to just go on and enjoy. You know, I enjoy Ollie every day, and you can't let your worries take over, because you just be worried sick constantly.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice, because I know for me, the first year, I really struggled. I had a really hard time with it, and my husband is more I call him, like, positive Patty. He's more like your mentality, and not that I don't have that mentality, but, like, moms worry so much more.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
There's a lot of weight on your shoulders as a mum, you know, definitely. And my husband, he is fantastic as well, and he's a great support, and together we just get through it, and that's it. You know, Ollie's our only child, and he's number one, and, you know, we're just enjoying every moment with him. We really are.
How does he do with his with the scans?
He tries to take the scanner and scans himself. You know, he just grabs a hold of it and starts playing with the cable and just scans himself. So I think he's maybe destined to be, a doctor or something like that.
Yeah, like, you know what? I'll find it myself.
Yeah, I can do it better.
Do they make you fast for his ultrasounds?
No, Ollie would struggle to fast, I would say, because he loves his food. So you can barely fast Ollie for a couple of hours, let alone, longer than that. So no, they just work away with him, So it's great, and the sonographers are very thorough with him, So again, they're used to Ollie. They know Ollie Scott's name whenever we come in.
I'm hearing a lot of people say that they don't. A lot of the doctors and like for the sonograms, they don't make them fast, and I'm like, can we not make my son fast? He's a beast.
I know, they need fed. Back with babies need fed constantly.
Oh my gosh. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but Owen was hospitalized at 7 weeks old for he had tongue reduction because it was obstructing his airway, and they were not used to the amount that our babies eat. They just were like, no, he doesn't eat that much. We don't want to overfeed him. We don't want him to aspirate. I'm like, no, you don't understand.
He just needs. I know. I was told Ollie needed to go on a diet, and also again looking at Ollie, we had to look at Ollie's food intake and his milk and all that. And dear love him, it's not good for him. He's not coping well.
No, and I think that a lot of people don't realize yes, they eat so much, but it's because they're constantly growing.
They need it.
So their metabolism is rapid fire. I mean, Owen never stops. My husband will be like, I don't know what his problem is. I just fed him a half hour ago. I'm like, he wants to eat. He wants to eat. And then I'll give Owen something to eat, and then he'll be fine.
I know. It's just the way they are. They just look at you with the puppy dog eyes and just want you to hand it over. And you just can't say no. You really can't. It's too hard. It's too hard.
I know, and I just actually, it was funny. I did a live with someone from Ireland yesterday. Her name is Selena. I was like, is that a common name in Ireland? And,
it must be.
Yeah, and I asked her because her daughter's 4, and she said, with the determination with these kids, it's so difficult because. Owen's 15 months. He can't really communicate what he wants yet, but he's so determined. And she was like, my biggest advice is just to learn to say no now, because if he's determined now, it's so much harder to say no when they're 4 or 5.
Yeah, and they're bigger, and you can't even carry them or anything,
Oh my God. Yeah, it looks ridiculous. What size clothes is Ollie in?
He's now up into age 3 clothes, and he's 1.5. But he's very tall, so he carries his weight well. Or so I tell myself. He carries it well. He doesn't look, but again, I think a lot of people would look at Ollie and mistake him for a lot older than he is. They don't realise he is only 1.5,
Have you had that issues with that? Because I feel like Owen's at the age where he's starting to test the waters, and his he's a baby. He can't communicate, so he gets frustrated, so he has tantrums. And I'm noticing the looks that I get from people in public that are looking at him oh my gosh, why do you not have control of your 3-year-old? And I want to say he's not 3.
I know they don't understand. Ollie is admired by everybody, especially old ladies love him, and they just look at him and say, oh, he's so gorgeous, and they ask what age, and you can see their face when I say, yes, he's 1.5, and they're like, really? But it is what it is. And Ollie started walking really the past sort of 6 weeks, and since he started getting on his feet, the tantrums are here. And he'll cry and look at you and then look back to see if you're still watching him, and I just try and look away because I think I can't look at you, because he's just attention seeking, try and see. But it is hard. It is hard because they are determined to get their own way, really.
I think I've talked to one BWS mom that has said, oh no, my baby is not strong-willed, my baby is not determined. I swear it needs to be put in the list of categories.
Definitely. They've got this strength inbuilt in them, that they're born with this strength to fight no matter what, whether it's food or whatever, they just have it in them. It's in their blood,
It really is, because even when I like go to the blood draws, when he gets his blood draws, like we never get the same person. So I'm always like, me and you might not be enough. And they're like, oh, and I'm like, no, like we're not enough to handle him and hold him down unless
hold him down.
Yeah, like you better have a really good grip on his arm. And they're like, oh yeah, and they brush me off, and then they go to get it, and he like flings his arm up. And they're like, oh my God, he's strong. I'm like, I told you.
They know where to put their weight to get themselves and wiggle themselves out. Ollie's the same, It's hard work.
It is hard work. I find myself like sweating. I'm like, and I'm not like, I feel like I'm pretty strong. I don't feel
I know.
like I'd be a mom, but holy crap. I'm like, he's like owning me.
I know. And you know what? This is just the start. It really is.
I know. They are so strong. Tanya said they are so strong. Hi, Caitlin. We're good. We're just checking in with Selena, and she's telling us about Ollie.
Yes.
Anyone on here, if you have any questions for her, feel free to write them. And can you see what people are typing, Selena, or no?
Yeah, I can see them as well. Hi, everybody.
Cool. So yeah, if anybody has any questions for you, what do you think? I'm trying to think too. I can't even swaddle my son anymore. It's a fight.
I know. They don't want your love anymore. They just push you away when you try and cuddle them. It's like, go away, Mom. And you're like, please, you're my baby.
Yeah. The only way I can really get like snuggle love from Owen is if I have some sort of food in my hand.
A bribe. Yeah. You have to bribe them.
Medina said her son is really strong too. It's crazy. I swear they need to add it to the list, because they do things that I'm like, you shouldn't be doing. I mean, I was pregnant the same time that my sister-in-law was pregnant, and my sister. So we all have, our babies are within weeks of each other, and just the difference between them is insane. Like my mom said, she was like, I look at Owen and he seems like a toddler. But then I look at the other two that were born within weeks of each other, and they seem like babies. And I'm like, I know. When I was younger, I used to fight the people who... Caitlin said when she was younger, she used to fight the people who used to do my ultrasounds. That's what Owen does. Caitlin, do you have any advice for us?
I know. Please help.
SOS. I feel like, oh, Medina, your baby's 9 months old. I know Owen will pick stuff up, and my husband and I will look at each other, and I'm like, he shouldn't be able to do that. He just shouldn't be able to pick it up.
They can do so much. They can do so much at all the age they are. But the interesting thing is, Ollie's done amazing. There hasn't been really any issues, other than it was discovered there a couple of months ago he has obstructive sleep apnea. So his tongue is falling down at night. Yeah. So again, his tongue size compared to when he was born, he has his tongue, but his 1.5, his jaw is still forming at the minute, so it is still causing a partial obstruction. So over here, they're quite weary of doing tongue reduction surgeries. We've spoken to a couple of ENT specialists, and they're not really forthcoming and wanting to, put Ollie through a tongue reduction. So at the moment, Ollie's on CPAP at night.
Okay.
So to begin with, that was quite a struggle to get him to wear a mask at night.
Yeah.
Especially with him being so strong and just wanting to pull it off. Right. But thankfully, he is coping amazingly on it, and he wears the mask at night and sleeps for 68 hours on the mask at night. So they are very, very pleased that he is now using the mask, and now his incidence of sort of obstruction has gone down dramatically. So again, it can be quite stressful at night when time's coming up here, I'm going to have to put him on the mask, how's this going to go? But it is what it is, and certainly it's not forever, and they're very optimistic that another year or so, he could potentially have grown into his tongue and no longer need CPAP or surgery. But again, they've said that sort of in a year's time, when he's about 2.5, 3, we need to sort of evaluate, do we go down the road of surgery here, or do we continue with the machine, or is he stopped? Is the obstruction stopped now? So that's really all at the minute that we're sort of dealing with alongside the ultrasounds. Apart from that, Ollie is his usual happy self.
Right.
No other sort of concerns, regarding anything else really. So I was just interested to see if anybody else has experienced, the use of CPAP. I do hear a lot at a time, the tongue reduction surgery being, quite a common thing. But if anybody has experienced the use of CPAP, that would be quite interesting to find out.
Yeah, I've never even heard someone say that was an option given to them. I mean, that's pretty awesome because, Owen had it. He had the sleep study done, which was a mess because he wanted to rip everything off.
Yeah.
And, it showed that it was his tongue was huge. I mean, it was like the first thing that I noticed when he was born. I was like, okay, he's adorable, but I know that that's not supposed to look like that.
Yeah, I know.
It's supposed to be in his mouth. So they were like, he's obstructing a decent amount of time. So their take on it, they didn't even say CPAP to me. They were just like, it needs to be reduced. And I know they like to wait. Even over here in the U.S., they like to wait because it can grow, and and that's what happened with Owen. His has grown, and I do think he'll need another reduction because it's affecting his teeth. But for him, they took over 2 inches from his tongue.
Oh my goodness, up there.
Yeah. So his was. I don't think CPAP would have been. It would have worked for him, but we just basically monitored him with there's this sock called the Owlet, and that's how we monitored.
I've heard of that. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so we monitored that, and that actually had me wake him up a few times because he was too low, and that was pretty scary.
It can be scary when you see the numbers start to go. So Ollie's on a CPAP machine, but he's also linked up to a SATS monitor, which will monitor his oxygen levels at the same time. So even now, it would still go off maybe 2 or 3 times a night when he drops. But again, when the alarms go off, you look and he's pulled the mask off. So that's why it's time. He's pulled it off in his sleep. So you just have to put it back on again, and that's it. So yeah, he's strong-willed even in his sleep.
Tanya said, how did you guys find out he had sleep apnea? So they recommended a sleep study.
Yes, Well, Ollie was seen sort of by ENT when he was 3 months old, and they looked at his tongue then, and they put a camera down and didn't really see any sort of concerns. There was plenty of space there for his tongue, and they felt at the time there was no need to really do anything other than do a sleep study on Ollie. But again, with the waiting list for that, because it wasn't urgent, it took us a full year to get the sleep study done. So when we actually got the sleep study done, they were quite horrified to find out that Ollie was desaturating up to 90 times a night.
Oh, that's so scary.
So that was scary for us because we had thought there wasn't really any concerns there, because Ollie does snore at night, but we thought that was normal. There was no other signs. He didn't change colour. He was, fitting well. He wasn't showing any other signs to us. So they were
he
quite.
Didn't choke or anything? Did he choke?
No.
No.
No, he just was. He was like, people used to say he's like an old man snoring. He was just, snoring, but he'd always done that, even when he was first born in neonatal, when they had him linked up to all the machines, they would have laughed because he would have been snoring away. But we had seen at the time it never affected his breathing, so we just assumed it was normal. But they were quite horrified, a year later, to find that he was desaturating quite frequently. So it was quite urgent then. They wanted to bring us in, so we spent 10 days in hospital to do more sleep study tests and carbon dioxide tests and all this, and try and work out a plan on what we were going to do, because again, they really didn't want to have to put Ollie through tongue reduction surgery. Again, a lot of the doctors here in Northern Ireland, I think, are a wee bit scared of the condition. You know, they don't have an awful lot of knowledge, so I think they kind of are like, oh, I don't want to touch him just in case, kind of thing. So they're a bit weary of Beckwith, and you know, it's nice to get more knowledge across the world of other specialists who, you know, specialise in the condition, to get their sort of take on it. But certainly the plan is at the minute from the hospital to keep him on the CPAP until he either goes into it or is a bit older, and we'll see how things go.
Yeah, Tanya said that's good to know. I think if I ever Tanya, you should totally request one.
Definitely, I would recommend it. Now, it can be hard. It took Ollie a good few days to get used to the mask, and they very much told me, look, don't expect Ollie to be on it the full night, and we're certainly not expecting him to be on it the whole night. But, you know, if you can get him used to the mask, so that to begin with, Ollie only wore the mask for the first couple of nights, so it wasn't linked to the machine. It was just the mask, so he slept with just the mask on and got used to it. And then we began connecting it in hospital to the machine. And again, even now, he's been on it for a couple of months now. He still will take it off and have his moments, you know, especially when he's teething. He's teething at the minute, and he's got a bit of a cold. So when he's wearing the nasal mask, you know, it can, all his bogies and everything can clog it up. So he doesn't want to wear it then, you know, and you can't blame him. So you just have to work with it. But certainly, you know, the majority of the time, Ollie's on it, you know, 6 to 8 hours a night, and the doctors are overjoyed because, you know, his incidents were up to 90 times a night, and with the CPAP, it's brought them down to less than 6. So it's dropped dramatically. So it's certainly working for us. So I would highly recommend, you know, to put forward, you know, and make the suggestion there, because it definitely does work, you know, for us.
Yeah, and just, I think, even just definitely push for a sleep study, and then that's such a good option. I'm going to suggest that to people that ask about tongue reduction and stuff like that,
because it buys you a bit more time, you know, because they are growing so quickly, and it gives you time then to see, you know, are they going to grow into their tongue, you know, do we rush this, you know, it gives you a bit more time to sort of think, look, what are we going to do here, you know?
Yeah, and at least with the sleep study, you know what you're working with. You know, okay, yes, he has a large tongue, but it's not affecting him. Or yes, you know, he has a large tongue, and it is really significantly affecting him. Like with Owen, he has hemihypertrophy of his right side, and it also affects his tongue, which I never picked up on until I really got a good look in the back of his mouth, and the whole right side is so thick in the back. Yeah, that like they didn't really debulk it when they took off like a whole bunch of length and the sides, but since it's grown, you know, it's still big back there. So I have paid attention to him while he sleeps, and he seems fine. But if it does continue to grow, it may be something that, you know, he may need another sleep study or whatever, just to know, you know, just to make sure he's getting enough oxygen to his brain while he sleeps.
Yeah. It's scary, you know, because you do find, I knew, whenever I first found out he was having those incidents, you know, I got real mum guilt, and I just I didn't sleep for days because I just watched him the whole night, because I just thought, you know, this is so scary, you know. But again, the doctors had said, you know, Ollie wasn't changing colour, he was quite a mystery, you know, he really wasn't showing any signs. And especially during the day, Ollie was hyper as anything. You know, he wasn't sleeping loads during the day or anything. You know, he's maybe sleeping an hour, and he was playing with boys and just an active little boy. So he really didn't show any major signs. So it's definitely worth doing a sleep study, because even if you think, oh, you know, my child's at a large tongue, but I don't think it's really causing an issue, definitely still push for a sleep study just to put your mind at ease, because we certainly thought we were okay until we got it done.
Yeah, and you just don't know unless there's obvious, you know, unless it's obvious. And that's the main thing, I feel like, with this syndrome. So many kids are getting missed because there are so many kids that don't have the obvious signs.
No, they don't.
Like there's kids that are born that look fine. They don't look like they have anything anything going on with them. And so, I really think that if Owen wasn't born with if he wasn't so big, and he didn't have the tongue and the hemihypertrophy, which was very obvious when he was born, I don't think we ever would have known.
No. It's the same for us. They very much tried to just say it was all down to me having diabetes and pregnancy. So again, if Ollie hadn't stayed in neonatal and had it been born, they just kept telling me, oh, you're having a big baby, it must just be in your genes to have a big baby. And I'm like, no, there's something else, but certainly it's certainly, we do need to raise awareness of the condition so that others know about it and have a bit more knowledge, because again, I'm sure the same as you, when I first heard Beckwith-Beaven syndrome, I didn't have a clue what it was. Right. You do have to sort of school yourself on it.
Yeah, it's true. And you just, sometimes now I find myself, I feel like a lot of the Beckwith babies have a similar look.
You can see similarities, I think, definitely. I think your Owen is very like my Ollie, except for your Owen has more hair. My Ollie is still, a wee bit thin on top.
Yeah, so now I find myself, like, I'll be, like, out with my husband and the kids, and I'll be like, oh, like, I'll see someone and their child, and my husband's like, you cannot say anything to them. You're going to freak them out. I'm like, I know, but they really look like they might, like, they really look like they could have it. Or, like, just people that just have isolated, like, their limbs are larger on the one side. Like, sometimes they're not even tested for BWS at all. They're just, we're not sure why you have that. And that's scary because they need to be tested for it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely. It needs to be more widely known so that, parents then have the confidence then to know what the symptoms may be and push for the testing. Again, our consultant was fantastic, and if she hadn't pushed for it, we wouldn't know. Ollie would still be a mystery, to them all.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Have you connected with any other BWS moms over in Ireland?
I haven't. I've only managed to speak to one. So if anybody else is in Northern Ireland or Ireland, send me a message, because it can be quite lonely here, especially with me not being on Facebook. I find that I'm missing sort of maybe the social networking side of linking with other families. So certainly, I really appreciate, Teresa, all that you're doing for Beckwith-Beaven syndrome, and certainly giving me the confidence to talk about it, because I am quite a private person, so it's taken a lot for me to speak about it, but I just want to raise awareness and show Ollie how proud I am of him. He really is my beautiful boy.
Yeah, he's your pride and joy, and I appreciate you coming on here. Hold on, I'm on the phone. I appreciate you coming on here and just sharing his story, and I will definitely get Celine, the other Selena. I'll get her for you, because her daughter's 4, so she's ahead of you.
That would be brilliant.
And Ollie, so she'll have a lot of she'll have a wealth of information for you, and she's in Ireland. I mean, and you guys can figure out how far you guys are and stuff like that. And she's so nice. She's great, and she was such a help for me. So if you
we can all help each other with our own stories and our own knowledge, and certainly if I can connect with somebody else physically over here in Northern Ireland, that would be even better,
Yeah, it would be so great. Well, I am so very thankful that you were, willing to come on and share your story. I know sometimes people want to keep it private, kind of want to keep it to themselves, because it is, not well known. And I just think that the more people do this, the more kids aren't going to get missed. And so I'm appreciative of you and little Ollie, and he's so stinking cute.
And he knows it, and he uses that as a card to play up.
Oh yeah, they use it. They know. I don't care how old they are. They know from when they're born. What? Do you want to say hi? My 4-year-old's being shy. Okay, hold on 1 second. So yeah, I'll message you her information, and you know, I'll keep in touch with you, and, you know, we can keep in touch with our kids' stories. Are you frozen? I think you're frozen. Oh no, we lost her. So I think did we lose you? Did we lose you? Oh no.
Lost you temporarily.
Yeah, I lost you a little bit. I'm like, oh no, where'd you go? But yeah, and we try and update our I know you're not on Facebook, but we try and update our website too with everything that we do on Facebook with these like segments and stuff, so you can watch the segments that you don't see on the website too. So
It's been a real help, and I really appreciate that. You know, so it means I can go on and gain more knowledge of the condition, and certainly, you know, find similarities. You know.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you again, and I will definitely connect you with Selena.
Definitely.
Well,
thank you very much.
You're welcome. It was really good to talk to you.
Same to you. Bye.
We'll see you later. Say bye.
Bye. Bye.
So that was our very first Instagram. Hang on. That was our very first Instagram segment with Selena, and that was really awesome. I mean, that went really smooth. Hey, Tanae. And, you know, I just encourage anyone that's on Instagram and that doesn't have Facebook. My phone, hold on 1 second. I encourage you to just reach out to me, and you can totally share your story and do a segment on Instagram. And, you know, I'm hoping that I'll be able to save these and then upload them on the website so the people that are on the Facebook page and vice versa can watch everything. So thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Selena, again, for telling us about Ollie and helping us raise awareness.